Welcome, everybody, to the Bassfug Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Ross Routman, a.k.a. ULK, a.k.a. Unluckykid. Thank you for joining us on the program today, Ross. It's a pleasure to have you.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Okay. So the first thing I want to jump into, well, there's a couple of things.
Sure.
But I want to start off with the heavy, just the heavy tech stuff. Your sound design really is the thing that sticks out for me the most.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that. I'm going through your discography because it's my job to sort of stalk the artists a bit and get to know them, you know. And the one thing that stands out to me is that your song mastering is very, very competent, or maybe I should say congruent. It's the levels are, everything is, I think that's like the perfect mix you could get for the bass genre from my own opinion. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
Thank you.
So I want to know
nice.
I want to know the whole chain, and I want to know the sound design. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to steal your tricks or whatever, but I mean, this is an educational podcast. If you could talk about your how you're producing your sound design, what DAW you're using, and kind of go into great detail.
Yeah, sure. So I work primarily in FL Studio, like exclusively in FL. I have tried messing around in Ableton a little bit. I tried like a 90-day trial over this past summer that I tried to get into it a lot more. But anytime I open Ableton, I kind of just get mad and close it because the workflow, it's just not what I'm used to. I work really well in FL. I think everything's laid out really nice. There's a lot of great stock tools and plugins in it.
Especially when you're doing like bass music, you have Harmor, you have a Vocodex, and that's like really half the battle in getting those really badass like synths.
It is, yeah. I'm not too much in Harmor. Primarily when it comes to like bass design, the synths I use the most in all my past tunes, it's almost been exclusively Serum, Xford's VST. It's so powerful, and you can get such cool sounds out of it. There's just so much you can do in it. Recently, I've been getting more into phase plants for kilohertz. That one's been another go-to. I really like using that one. And I just got into Vital, Matt Title's new plugin, which I really like. It's free.
Yeah, that's the new one, the new free one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really powerful too. It's kind of like I guess you could say a Serum Light in a way. It functions a lot in the same ways. But yeah, I primarily work in a lot of those.
And it's and if I could just interject, no pun intended what I'm about to say. The Vital is actually on Linux. It's cross-platform.
I heard that. Yeah.
I installed it on Ubuntu the other week, and I was very surprised that a high production VST was available on such a weird, obscure operating system.
Right.
I really appreciate it.
I think it's really
that.
Cool. Yeah, it's really cool how we kind of incorporated that.
Do you, since it's new, I guess you haven't really been able to sort of flex the sound design in Vital. Do you find it's the same as Serum, or can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, are a lot of functions that are pretty similar to Serum. Like it's got the standard LFOs and envelopes in it. But the parts that really stick out to me, it has random envelopes. So it kind of just generates like a random LFO, and you can kind of route that to, say you want to route it to a filter cutoff. So you'll have it randomly like swooping up and down. And if you record that, you can get some cool stuff and then go back and resample it. I really like using random things for that. Like Phase Plant has a really nice random envelope generator too. But yeah, in Vital, there's some other really cool parts in it too. Let me pull it up really quick. Actually, there's underneath the unison bar, there's a collection of like different settings for the waveform. You can throw on like vocode, harmonic stretch, inharmonic stretch, random amplitudes. I really like using random amplitudes. It kind of turns waves into like, I guess you could call it more of like a bell sound. It has that kind of timbre to it. So it's really cool for getting those types of sounds, which I really love.
What did you say? Random amplitudes?
Yeah, it's just like this setting you can put onto a wave, and it changes the waveform. And I'm not too sure of like the science or anything behind it, but it makes some really cool like tubular like bell sounding types of sounds.
Continue. Yeah.
Sure. So then it has a bunch of same effects built in, like Serum does. The reverb, and it's really, really nice. Yeah. Other than that, I haven't gotten to do a whole lot with it yet. Lately, I haven't been doing too much songwriting and more so just experimenting.
That's awesome. So we're going over the synths now, but let's switch to the mastering. What's your mastering chain like?
My master chain is,
and specifically, your drums. Yeah. Your drums stand out to me. I'm not sure if it's maybe a particular sample pack or something, but the drums really cut through, and the synths are really abrasive too, like in a good way. You know what I mean? And I'm just that was the one thing that stuck out to me. The songs are definitely catchy. They're solid bangers. It's weird when you're in the bass music scene. It's like a game of inches when it comes to the sound design and the mixing. And I thought
it really is.
I thought there was just a little bit more from what I was hearing. So sorry to just kind of like hit you over the head with that, but I just wanted to talk about this right off the gates. Let's talk about the mastering chain.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I don't know if granted, there's no correct way to like mix and master songs. So I shouldn't feel bad about saying this, but I do put OTT on my master. I put, let's see, I forget the exact settings. I put, where is it? Let's see. I put the depth at like 44%-ish. I turned the time up, and then I dropped the input gain and raised the output gain quite a bit. And then I'll drop the upward compression 50, and then I'll drop the downward just a couple percent, because I find that, I don't know exactly what it does, but it just makes the low end like hit a little more. Like it brings out that oomph in the kick. And then I kind of just smash it into a limiter, to be honest. And then I just try to push it as far as I can. And usually I'll try to aim for like -5, -6 luffs around there. So yeah, a lot of it just comes really trying to push things as loud as possible. And what I do is I'll start my song with my master chain on. So I'll mix everything directly into it, so I'll know what the final product sounds like the whole time, which in a way is a little debilitating, because I feel like in some ways it kind of hinders my creativity, because like if it doesn't sound good in that moment, like with my mix and master, then I'll kind of just scrap the idea.
And it might be bad for your ears too, a little bit, because if you're producing with this, I'm speaking from tonight, from experience. My tinnitus in my older age is, I think, a direct consequence of having limiters on my master bus and producing.
Oh, I agree.
7 hours.
I'm starting to get a little ring going too, and it's not. Yeah, not too bad yet, though. I can still deal with it.
Yeah, it's not as well. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be a cure for it in 20 years or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's got to be.
Yeah. Do you Okay, there's two directions. I'll go in the first direction. Let's talk about your music history, because I want to see who your inspirations are. But I feel like it might be two birds with one stone if I just ask you the questions from the very beginning. I know you were in the school band, if that's correct. I was in the school band too. I was the drummer back in the day. I was wondering if you could talk about sort of your first music memory, if anybody was sort of influential to you musically in the beginning, and how that sort of got to making bass music. Because especially with school band, they make you play the Lion King theme and stuff like that, Yes. And then I'm curious, like how you go from being like presumably classically trained to making like more or less club bangers. How does that transition work? So let's start from the beginning. Your first music memory.
First music memory. Well, my memory is a little fuzzy, but I can say a lot of my inspiration to like getting into music growing up was from my dad. because he was in a band from late 80s through early 2000s. And that really just exposed me to like a lot of good music. Like I remember we'd go camping and he'd sit around campfire and just play his guitar. When we were driving, he'd have like classic rock going all the time. So that's what I like first like kind of listened to. And then eventually, once I got into playing video games, like I had a PS2, I'd start finding my music through whatever was just playing on the video games. And then I'd go to iTunes and like download that. So I was into like Green Day for a while. Just like a bunch of rock like that, started getting into like punk rock, I guess you could call it, like some Sum 41, Blink 182. And then I'm not too sure when it happened, or I guess I'll talk about band too. So I started in 6th grade. I played alto saxophone. I started out on, but then I think in 7th or 8th grade, I switched to tenor sax, just because I really liked how that sounded compared to the alto. And plus there was no other tenors, so I got first chair immediately, which was cool. But yeah, that's where my music, like my interest in music really started to grow, just because I always had so much fun playing music just outside of listening to it too. And then I think I started getting into electronic music a little before middle school.
I just want to interrupt for a second. The
Sure.
alto sax is deeper than the tenor sax, right?
Other way around. The tenor's a little deeper than the alto.
Okay, because there's something that I notice in your music too, where you have the deep sort of synth lines, the deep bass lines, but this isn't a knock or anything. This isn't a backhanded compliment.
No,
but like I like there was I was listening to Onimus. And I thought it was, yeah. I thought you sampled a capybara whistling or something for one of the melodies. You know, it was really high frequency melodies. And when I heard that, and I was continuing through the discography, I noticed there was this sort of duality of really deep, I guess like brass almost sounding synths and bass, but then you also have a lot of sort of the top end shimmer with the melodies. And when you're telling me that you made the switch from alto to tenor,
which is kind of like a mid-range thing, yeah.
I thought that was kind of a little bit. I thought it revealed something, but sorry, continue. I was just wondering if you think that maybe that change earlier on, sort of. Kind of resonated with you and stuck with you a little bit to prefer certain ranges, because a lot of, especially in bass music, there's a lot of people that they're kind of stuck in a range, you know. And I noticed that your songs kind of have a lot of all of the range. If that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I just kind of like making as many different styles and sounds as I can, because I think it's like not knocking anyone who has their own sound by any means, because I think that's great, especially to like build up a brand. But I've just never really identified with like only one type of style or sound. So I really like to just play around and do all sorts of different things, because I think that's the most fun. That's like, just playing around and experimenting.
Let's talk about the jump to, I guess, electronic music. When did that happen, and who were the influences?
Yeah, so when I first started getting into electronic music, I think it was partly I was going into middle school and I started meeting new people and they kind of listened to it too. I got lucky. My locker buddy in middle school, me and him ended up being really good friends and started going to shows together later on. But around that time, I got DJ Hero for the PlayStation, and I really liked just like the music that was on there, as corny as that might sound. So I think my number one, like day one, was probably Deadmau5, of course, just because he's the man. So
if I had $1 for every person Deadmau5 influenced on this freaking podcast, I'd have however many podcasts we have.
Yeah, seriously, it's crazy. It's just so funny how just a small handful of big names are like the reason that so many people get into the whole genre. But yeah, Deadmau5 was my number one. That's kind of where I started branching off into other things too, because on iTunes you can this was years ago, but you'd find related artists and things like that. So I'd go to like Deadmau5, and then I discovered Porter Robinson, who's pretty much my all-time favorite now. Through Porter, just got introduced to other people, started listening to like Kill the Noise, Cone Sound, a few others pretty early on, like Glitch Mob too. But yeah, that was all super, super early what I started listening to. And then as I got into like writing and everything myself and got onto SoundCloud, then that's when I started digging pretty deep and finding just all these underground artists that made incredible music that I never heard before. And I think that really just sparked my love for just trying to make weird, just out there stuff that no one's heard, but like people would still like.
You noticed you mentioned iTunes, and there's something that I noticed. I don't know, maybe I'm just a boomer and I don't know how to use a computer or something, but I couldn't really find your discography on Spotify or iTunes. I checked for ULK, I checked for Unluckykid. Do you not publish on there, or am I missing something?
The last I checked, I still had some songs up on Spotify, but I heard something that something was going on with DistroKid and they were starting to take down people's music. So I don't know if I got, I don't know if they took down my stuff. I haven't checked. Yeah. I should probably look into that. But yeah, I did have a few songs up on Spotify, but a lot of them I just kind of keep on SoundCloud just because in a lot of my older stuff, especially, I like to work with copyrighted samples just because they're fun. You know, people know them and love them. And if you hear something like you recognize live, it's like, oh man, he just did that. Yeah. And people go crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of why I haven't put too much on Spotify yet.
Okay.
But
so it's not to out you or anything. I was just curious why. But it's funny that you mentioned that because we've had some problems with DistroKid too, and it could be just like text on your album cover, but it's like the text is like 11-point font or something like that.
Yeah,
they're really picky.
They really are.
Let's talk about PlayStation music. You brought up PlayStation 2 twice. I'm curious because for me, I know there's a lot of stuff that I discovered through video games, even way back to Super Nintendo. They had the Butthole Surfers on their commercial, you know, old grunge band. And I know, like for PlayStation 2, I always think of Grand Theft Auto 3. Moving Shadow Records had a radio station on it. It's just all like jungle underground stuff. It's just really dope. I'm curious what soundtracks on the PlayStation 2 really you like, and if any were sort of influential on you.
That's a good question. I haven't thought about this in a long time. I never played too many like super amazing games. Like it was all the basic. Like
I think you also sampled GTA 3 in one of your songs, Portal Testing, I think, right?
Oh yeah. The oh shit, here we go again. Yeah. That one. Yeah. Oh yeah. I just thought it was really funny. I remember playing that too. I think that was San Andreas, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, you know what, you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't allowed to play GTA on my PlayStation for a few years when I was growing up, so I'd always play that at my friend's house, like secretly. But as far as music that I was playing at home, I think a lot of it was like I found out Green Day through like Madden. And then once I got my PS3 and I got the Grand Theft Auto games on that, then that's when I started getting more into like those music. Or those radio stations, just because they had so much to listen to, and especially in GTA 5 with Fly Willow FM, that was my favorite, all-time favorite.
There's a question that I wanted to ask. I forgot to when we were talking about mastering and sound design.
Oh, sure.
What were you using for monitoring, and what kind of headphones are you using?
Oh yeah, so for headphones, I have Audio-Technica M40. X's. I know a lot of people use the 50s, but I heard that the 40s had like a slightly flatter frequency response, so I went with those, and I've really liked them. They have never done me dirty. And then I recently got these like a year or two ago, some nice like JBL monitors. I forget the model number though, but they sound really nice. But I do most, if not all, of my mixing and mastering in my headphones. And then I'll just give it like a loud test on my speakers once it's all done.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about playing live. I wasn't able to with the pandemic. It's weird. It's like I find that when I'm interviewing people, it's sort of a blessing and a curse. We've sort of learned how to survive as like artists, as like creators online. But there's also that live element that we've replaced digitally, and it's fine. It's better than nothing, but it'd be cool to play a show again, like hang out with your buds.
It'd be so nice.
I'm curious if you could talk about your live experiences before COVID, if there were a lot of them, and how you're handling the quarantine confinement sort of life now.
Yeah, sure. So just really within the last 2 or 3 years was when I started being able to like go and like travel for shows. I think, my first one was just a couple years ago in Boston. It was just out at this small bar, had a pretty small crowd, and it was just with a bunch of my friends that we started a small collective with that we don't do too much now with. But that was my first out of state show, and that was only like 2 or 3 years ago. And then after I released Bass Shed, which is now off of SoundCloud and everywhere, that's when I started to get more offers, just because that song kind of started blowing up on SoundCloud a little. And then I started playing out in like Colorado. I did a show. I played a Dub Day show out in New York not too long ago. And then once Peekaboo came out and Immersive dropped that at Red Rocks and then posted videos of it, then I started getting like a lot more attention. And that's when I started getting more offers for out of state shows. But I still haven't done like a whole lot, I don't think. Right before the pandemic, I was on like a mini tour with my friends Moniker and Controlla and Mike Rat. And we went, I think we did a stretch of like 10 shows down south in like Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Ohio. And I want to say one or two more. But yeah, we just got done doing a stretch of shows down there. And COVID like started to hit right at the end of that tour because we had, I think, one or two shows canceled because of it. So at that point, I didn't even think anything of it because it was the beginning. And I'm sure we all thought, oh, this will just blow over in like a month or two. But now it's kind of turned into this whole thing. And we've been without live shows for so long now. But yeah.
How have you been sort of, I guess, coping with it? Do you find because one of the big things is networking with people.
Yeah.
Are you networking a lot through like Discord and through different means, or do you find you're sort of becoming reclusive and waiting for it all to go back to normal?
A little bit of both. I think I'm not like generally the best at networking and putting myself out there anyways. Like even at shows, I'd still be kind of shy and like would only talk to people if they'd like come up and talk to me, like that type of thing. But I feel like overall things have sort of stayed the same. Most of my interactions with like other producers and networking and just like friendship ways have always been online. So I've been keeping in touch with a lot of people still, playing video games with a lot of people a lot more often now. So just keeping those relationships going has been really fun and nice, like having that time to do that like outside of shows, because before it was like I'd only see these people in the show setting. Now it's like nice in a way to like just get to hang out with them and play some games. But I definitely do miss the shows a lot. That's been hard for sure.
You talk about being shy and earlier about getting more attention from getting featured. I'm curious for if you have advice for artists out there who are, I guess, more introverted or shy. How can you, I don't want to say survive, I'm not sure if survive is the right word, but how can you get out there? How can you put yourself out there? How can you stand out as someone who doesn't like to stand out?
That's a good question. I think, ironically, I just kind of got lucky, which is kind of luck and kind of just putting in an insane amount of work into my music, because ever since I graduated high school and went to college, like I'd go to class, I'd come back, and I'd just sit on my computer for hours and hours and put hours every single day into just writing and experimenting. And eventually it just sort of pays off. Like if you don't want to put the time into promotion and networking and things like that, if you put enough time into your music and get it up to a certain level, of just quality and cohesiveness, then that attention will just come to you eventually. At least that's what happened in my experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's some solid evergreen advice. If your band or act or whatever kicks ass, people are going to find out about it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about the music. That's what it comes down to. It's just got to be good, and eventually everything else will come later.
Do you want to tell us about the story of you getting hit with the pine cone?
Oh man, I would love to, because I've gotten like it's came up like briefly a few times, like at shows and stuff. Like, is that true? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. But the full story,
I thought it was like a fever dream. When I read it on your Bandcamp profile, I thought it was like some weird, like drug-induced, like fever dream.
That's what it seems like, yeah. But it really happened, and it was just like, maybe it was just a really bizarre fever dream, but it was pretty real to me. I was going to school. I just got done with an exam, and I walked out of the building, and I got done early. I hadn't eaten yet, so I was going to sit down on this bench and eat my breakfast. And I was walking over to the bench, and I noticed a pine cone fall out of this tree, like right next to me. I was like, oh, squirrels, they're just having fun up there. That's okay. So I go to sit down, and I start eating my granola bars, and then a pine cone landed like really close to me. And I look up, and there was just like this rustling going on in the trees. And I was like, oh, the squirrel's just not having a good day and wants to take it out on me, I guess. So I keep eating. And then a third pine cone gets thrown. And it's as mid putting granola bar into my mouth, pine cone drills me in the face and almost knocks my glasses off. And I look up, and I didn't see anything. It was just rustling. So I was like, wow, this squirrel's just being a dick today. He's got an arm too. So eventually I finish, and I get up, and I look up because throughout this more pine cones were landing by me. And there was this hand waving to me at like the top of this 60-foot tree. It was as tall as this building that was like 5 or 6 stories tall. And there was a hand waving at me, and I like look up, and it's this old man. He had a long white beard and long white hair. And he was like, hey, do you see me? And I was like, yeah. You also kind of hurt me, but yeah, it was just really bizarre. And I kind of played that off as like, well, that's just my luck, isn't it? Getting hit by a pine cone by a 60-year-old man from the top of a tree.
Did you ask him for a SoundCloud or anything? Or?
I should have gave him my link just to be like, hey, you hurt me, so here, you can make up for it by following me and reposting my tracks.
Yeah, you could have sampled them.
I should have next time. I'm sure he's still there.
Yeah, maybe. When after COVID, maybe you could go find him.
True.
So let's talk about. I think we're getting at the end of the interview here. Let's talk about where we could reach you, and let's talk about like where your socials are and all that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm just on all the basic ones. Really, I got like a Facebook page set up, Twitter and Instagram. The ats are kind of weird just because I don't know if it was either didn't let me do just the 3 letters ULK, but a lot of them is like ULK_whole, or just Unluckykid. But yeah, that's the extent of my socials. Otherwise, SoundCloud, that's main area of focus when it comes to uploading music. So give me a follow on there if you want to.
Do you have any new music coming out soon?
No, sadly. I've just been really struggling writing like full songs recently. I've kind of just been taking a step back and trying to like experiment again. So hoping to spark some inspiration sometime soon. Hopefully upload some more songs again.
When you say experiment, what do you mean? Like going like full blown Aphex Twin, or like or just trying to figure out your synths?
A little bit of both. Just kind of messing around and making whatever comes to mind and trying to make sounds that I haven't made before and just seeing what happens. Trying to, come up with as many ideas as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross. I totally appreciate the time.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
No problem. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
This program was brought to you by the superwill64.com Entertainment Network. For more great shows, podcasts, and music, please visit superwill64.com.